Around the world, 55 million people are living with Alzheimer's or other types of dementia. Now, 6 million people live with the condition here in the U.S., and due to lack of research, little is understood about how the disease impacts minority communities. But refugees who escaped the horrors of the Vietnam War could play a vital role in changing all of that. Van 2 shares first of its kind research right here in Northern California that aims to understand how wartime trauma impacts the brain.
Along a 2-mile stretch of Stockton Boulevard in South Sacramento, you can sense the pulse of the city's Vietnamese American diaspora, Little Saigon. It was here during the late 70s and 80s Vietnam War refugees rebuilt their lives. But before this vibrant neighborhood came to be, a period of darkness.
If we are ever in a situation where we feel we will not make it, she would kill me first, and then she would go with me.
That's really dark.
UC Davis graduate Duy Nguyen recounts a suicide pact his mother made.
I think most people are shocked by that, and they're like, that's such a bad parenting, right? But I think if you're not in that situation, you cannot judge.
A situation of pure desperation, he says, to escape communist Vietnam.
Escape is the best word for it, because you were persecuted, you were hunted by the police.
After landing in prison 6 times while trying to flee, Nguyen says on the 7th try, his mother, then 23, paid a bribe to smugglers to take them on the ocean voyage. He was 5 years old.
Darkness is so prevalent in the memory.
It was a journey that took a year.
There was very little sunshine.
His family and 40 others trekking through jungles, wading through wave-whipping waters, and traveling in the cover of night.
We were always kind of encased in kind of a hole. They were filled also with like horrible memories of being like in a garbage truck, of witnessing an execution.
But along the way, moments of humanity. His mother giving him her food scraps, a stranger hoisting him above sea waters.
Those are the dominant memories of the trip.
Staying in a refugee camp in Malaysia until they reached a U.S. embassy in the Philippines for sponsorship papers to the U.S.
We arrived in the airport with 3 trash bags, and that was all of our belongings. And that's how we started America.
But as a newcomer, new challenges. Spending an afternoon with Nguyen and his fiancée, Nguyen tells us he didn't speak at school for 2 years, though he did at home. Selective mutism, they call it.
Yeah, I was kind of completely cut off from any kind of cultural lifeline.
This early disorder, he later realized, was a symptom of trauma.
Definitely, like the dominant theme of refugees is trauma.
It's one of many personal experiences that inspired Nguyen to pursue a career in psychiatry and serve marginalized communities, realizing he carried his trauma throughout his life. Years, even decades later, wartime trauma is still present and salient for many. Lê Thị Ngọc An's family was one of the first to leave Vietnam, with ties to the U.S. Embassy.
They were able to escape Vietnam a day before the fall of Saigon on April 29th. And they came to the U.S. And were sponsored by a church in Pennsylvania, and eventually moved to New Jersey.
She's now under her daughter's care in Davis, California.
Lê Thị Ngọc Anh.
Dr. Won Meyer, an associate director at the Department of Neurology at UC Davis, says she began noticing changes in her mother as she approached 70.
One of her major fears and symptoms was just this paranoia about the Vietnamese communists or Viet Cong being outside of our house. So she would always close the blinds, close the windows.
It was like her memories of war as a young woman were on repeat.
Clashes with North Vietnamese regulars in the central coastal plain near Bang Son.
She always talked about how she had to run underground when there were bombing raids in Vietnam. So that's when I felt like something was wrong.
Her mother was diagnosed with dementia 7 years ago.
While their short-term memory is impacted, their long-term memory stays intact.
While researching caregiver stress, she noticed troubling trends among Vietnamese Americans like her mother. Dr. Meyer says Vietnamese Americans are the fourth largest Asian origin group in the U.S. and are at a critical risk for poor physical health and mental health. A sizable portion are living with depression due to war and resettlement. Dr. Meyer is on a mission to learn more.
We really don't know very much about the prevalence of dementia or Alzheimer's in older Vietnamese. So I think that's really important for AAPI communities, is to have a voice.
She's leading the first of its kind longitudinal study of 500 North California Vietnamese Americans over 65 through a $7.2 million grant from the National Institute on Aging. The goal is to examine potential links between the Vietnam War refugee experience and cognitive disorders. Their cognitive health will be tracked over 5 years.
What is the prevalence of dementia in this group, and what are the factors associated with dementia? Specifically looking at adversity and trauma early in life.
Through a Sacramento partnership, some participants are being interviewed at Asian Resources Inc. headquarters in South Sacramento, in the heart of Little Saigon.
I think that what we learn from Vietnamese Americans might help us understand other refugees and their vulnerability to health and health disparities.
Meyer says she was initially surprised there's a wait list to join her study, as mental health is a taboo subject in many Asian communities.
I think there is just that cultural value of saving face for yourself, for your family, for your community.
But what Myers and Nguyen have found in their work, representation matters.
So I think when you open that door,
When we do something like this, if other Vietnamese people hear it, they're like, oh wow, my story is being told.
to feel like there's someone else out there who's going through the same things I'm going through.
I'm not alone.
Van is with me now. And Van, this research focuses on Vietnamese Americans, but there is a greater purpose.
Absolutely. Right now we are witnessing waves of refugee crises. You see it in Ukraine, there's 10 million Ukrainians who have been displaced by the war, and in Afghanistan about 2.6 million people displaced. So the hope with this research is that in the future we can see how these experiences with wartime can really impact these groups of people, and how it can be maybe early diagnosed, and how it could really help folks in the future.
And what are some of the warning signs that people should really be looking out for?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in the process of reporting this and speaking to the researchers, really a lot of people just chalk it up to, they think it's a natural sign of aging, right? So they don't know the difference between Alzheimer's and just getting older and maybe forgetting something once in a while. There really is a difference between forgetting your keys and maybe being unable to retrace your steps. So on your screen, we did list some of the early warning signs from the Alzheimer's Association here. So things, of course, like completing familiar tasks, and we have a next slide with the other 5 things. So if you notice any of these symptoms with someone you love, or maybe someone in your family, yourself included, then they recommend that you talk to someone you trust or a healthcare provider.
All right, Van, thank you so much. We appreciate it.